Hey everybody, it's your good old pal EmptyHero, and today, because my Patreons hate me almost as much as God hates me for that thing I did in the alley behind the Fuddruckers in 1994, we're gonna summarize my latest 50-hour-long slog through baby's first role-playing game, instead of cutting all losses and spending a week downloading an elaborate array of horrific Japanese porn mods that I'd wind up deleting immediately after slopping and plopping throbbing hot prostate droppings. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, also known as Fallout without guns or sense of humor, has everything an entry-level blithering idiot who identifies as a gamer rather than developing a personality based on actual life experiences could ask for. You know, other than a spoonful of Soylent and yet another colon full of cum. You see that mountain, kiddo? You can climb it. Of course, by climb it, I mean you can slowly amble a featureless path over that mountain when you could just no-clip directly to the top, like literally everyone else will after their first eventless trek to High Hrothgar. Telling a customer they can climb a mountain when they can't even ascend inclines greater than 35 degrees is like a woman saying you can come over and fuck her right in the pussy. Then after a 3-hour-long drive to a state with more reasonable age of consent laws, she only lets you drag the great jelly-encrusted tip of your vector for incurable venereal diseases across her mustache because her children Tyrone, Makwambo, and Chitalinia stayed up late to watch the streetlights come on so they could see what it looks like when an electricity bill is paid on time. Loretta, you lying fucking bitch! I cannot help but feel that much of the goodwill heaped upon Skyrim is due to the low standards and complete ignorance of the game's target audience of Big Bang Theory loving casuals who, if you ask them for their opinions on Chim, they'd probably think it was some kind of avocado-based anal lubricant, while The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword was a complete pile of fermented monkey jizz due to the developers trying their best to make it idiot-proof by having tutorials pop up every goddamn 5 seconds. Skyrim took the opposite approach and made campaigns so dumbed down and guided that you can literally complete the game by slapping the controller with your dick. See this near endgame fight? I'm literally just smashing my cock and balls against the keyboard, as if it was foolish enough to smell a rag I placed over his face in an alleyway behind the Fuddruckers. And sure, while playing Skyrim in this manner destroys the occasional coffee cup, desk, and relationship with my eldest son, I want to point out that I wasn't even looking at the screen while flopping my industrious chocolate hurricane of love on the keys, as I was far too engrossed in the book of Proverbs from the Old Testament to distract myself with such banal trivialities at the time. And honestly, fans of Skyrim simply don't know what they are missing. While I can understand that oblivion is uglier than a woman's studies major after a long night of studying painless methods of suicide but chickening out yet again, Tiffany, you fucking coward! If you can't live with what happens in the alley behind the Fuddruckers at 3 a.m., you should either get your flabby, delicious ass to bed on time, or at the very least, learn to sprint faster than me. And that the gameplay of Morrowind, Daggerfall, and Arena are as dated as my opinion on minorities. Those Elder Scroll games contained a magic now lost to time, like a glittering fistful of jelly crammed up a woman's ass, where it mixes with shit and becomes irrevocably befouled. Skyrim's greatest achievement, perhaps, is its metaphorical outpouring of extraneous chromosomes. Slap a Pete Rose wig on his head, a penny in his mouth, and a strangled cat in his peanut butter slathered fingers in hopes of preventing it from masturbating in public, because it's handy-capable as fuck, and that occasionally worked on me as a child, young adult, and presently. It's like the developers wanted to cut out half of the game-breaking bugs left over from the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion by cutting out half of the things the player could do in Oblivion, which in itself had already cut out half of the things you could do in Morrowind. This is the equivalent of stuffing your dick hole full of ants because you can't quit stealth nutting on fat-ass bitches at the bus stop, rather than just busting a nut at home and slathering it on the back of their necks with a butter knife like a proper gentleman. Especially when we all know from experience that 4 or 5 pipe cleaners work just as well and cannot only be reused, but also allow one to bend their long john silverfish into such festive shapes as dodecahedrons and functional handcuffs. In a game with flying enemies and unscalable mountains, where the fuck is the levitation spell? In such a straightforward, follow the floating Dorito over your head to the next plot point type of game, where is the reward for wandering like my left eye does when the glue vapors kick in? While you can literally use a joke item in Morrowind to jump dozens of miles through the clouds to reach the final area of the game, complete the main quest in under 5 minutes, then explore the rest of Morrowind with endgame gear, if you utilize exploits in Skyrim to reach the final showdown at Sovngarde quickly, you'll find that not only do dragons still spawn in Skyrim unabated, but that you'll find better items in the next random cave you explore than in the final area, since all rewards and loot are scaled to your character's level. The landmass of Skyrim is dumbed down as well. Instead of making spaces seem larger by populating them with unique encounters and set pieces, Bethesda padded out Skyrim by placing impassable barriers between the Dragonborn and their goals. Much like God does when he places an unstrangled prostitute in a poorly lit alley behind a Fuddruckers as I'm walking towards the bus stop with a jelly jar full of jizz and a bent butter knife in hopes of reaching my parole board review on time. Now, before I dissect Skyrim's main campaign, guilds, and DLC like a woman of ill repute passed out behind a Fuddruckers with a butter knife slathered in grape jelly embedded in her womb, I would also like to address some details so niggling they might as well be one of those kids I legally refuse to acknowledge. First and foremost, for a game about dragons and some hopped up fucking special snowflake called the Dragonborn, there isn't a single goddamned dragon in the entire fucking game. Dragons have 4 legs. The wyverns of Skyrim only have 2. You'd think a studio as big as Bethesda could have mixed things up by having some traditional English, non-flying 4-legged dragons, Hillary Clinton without her mask, or some of those slinky-ass Chinese dragons that bombed us at Pearl Harbor and refused to reproduce at a sustainable rate in the game. But nope, the only actual dragons in Skyrim require an extensive menagerie of animated prostitution mods in order to enable the player to start dragging their nuts across Lydia's face. Secondly, I can't stress enough how few voice actors were brought on for this game. You can literally walk in a straight line through Whiterun, and half of the people you pass will not only vomit up unsolicited personal information onto you, as though having a metaphorical bad reaction to ether mixed with grape jelly in the alley behind a Fuddruckers, but will also do so in identical voices. By the time you finish the main quest, you won't be able to hear another bad Arnold Schwarzenegger impression in real life without looking around expecting to see a generic Skyrim guard following you. Seriously, my tender, succulent babes, you'll hear more unique voices emanating from Zoe Quinn's bedroom at night than while playing Skyrim. Did they not have enough money to hire some voice actors? Shit, the 4 people they hired could have at least tried to do some different voices. Oh, hello, Douglas. Welcome to my store. Bud's Overwares. Why are my wares called over, you ask? Because they're top of the line, very expensive, and if they weren't over, they'd be underwears, you silly goose. Now pull down that sword and grab my purple halberd. Oh, wait. Bethesda was too lazy to put any of those in this game. Oh, Dragonborn honey, rent you a room in this inn, and we can stay up late swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Hello, Novichu. You're looking mighty sexy there in your glistening purple halberd. Now that I'm your house, Carlton, I'm looking forward to the inevitability of you installing some of those saucy Japanese canoodling mods in our sex time together. My mother and I can pick you up from the Dragon Shrine and fast travel back to Breathe Home. I know many positions, though. Since this is a Bethesda game, my animations are pretty lacking. Or we could just take it slow, spoon on the couch and watch a little, Falmer guy.
Now, was that so throbbing and dribbling and bent at a 45-degree angle over a bag of rotten hamburger meat? I mean, was that so hard, Bethesda? And thirdly, perhaps most annoyingly, is the issue of the Draugr. These basic bitch generic level scaled motherfuckers are more abundant than pubic crabs, show up just as often despite all the money I waste on borax and lighter fluid, yet probably taste about the same when spread on toast with some pitch black jelly scraped off of your shirt after some thoughtless woman clenched your butter knife so hard with her fallopian tubes that you had no choice but to thrust her stomach into your fist, and it sprayed that reconstituted smucker straight out of her pucker. That fucker? Listen here, Bethesda. If I wanted to spend hours struggling with some dried-out Nordic cunts, I'd have fisted Bjork that time I met her at rehab, instead of just stabbing her in the ass with a butter knife and running off with her wig. But enough of this hullabaloo, and on to dissecting the monument of unadulterated crapulence and mediocrity that is Skyrim's main campaign. In this, The Elder Scrolls IKEA Edition, you play as a kleptomaniac mass murderer who runs slower than Windows 98, has special dragon blood due to his great-grandmother getting butt-fucked by a newt in an alleyway behind the Fuddruckers in 1994, as far as she knows, thanks to the hallucinogenic properties of ether when mixed with jelly and a healthy dose of spooning, and leaves a trail of nude corpses in their wake, much as I do on cold December nights, when the street lights behind the Fuddruckers burn out, on their epic quest to shout at a lizard's taint like some sexually confused teenage girl whose father repeatedly molested her, but she doesn't know how to express her ephemeral mixture of disgust, self-loathing, and sexual confusion, so she just takes it out on everyone else instead. By the way, thanks for keeping things on the down low, Laquifa. After all those metaphorical pony rides, I promise I'll buy a real, non-grape jelly slathered, pubic lice infested pony for you someday. I'm not really gonna buy his shit. That girl's dumber than a dumber getting a hummer in summer. This fanciful foible begins with you, the chosen one, being sentenced to death for crossing the border into Skyrim illegally, as all fence jumpers should be. Fortunately, the final boss of the game saves your life despite him knowing exactly who you are and wanting to kill you, then not killing you for no particular reason. How convenient! This sets off a quest to inform Jor-El Balgruuf, the personality-devoid leader of Whiterun, where whites run everything, that if the developers of Skyrim actually had the technical prowess necessary to render transparent windows, he could have peered out of one of them and seen a dragon flying around shitting red-hot anal ambergris all over the fucking place like a dog who ate pan drippings. After handing a rock to a hydrocephalus patient in a bathrobe, then standing around while guards kill a dragon, you are given a thought, whose name Lydia is short for Syphilidia, and sent on an eventless trek towards the deep throat of the world, where you will encounter a cloister of identical monks who either spout endless vats of exposition at you or say nothing because they possess the deadliest voice heard since Mark David Chapman asked John Lennon for an autograph, and noticing Mark was in a bad mood, John attempted to cheer him up by suggesting that Yoko sing for the guy instead. These perverts offer you a blowjob so powerful that only the true Dragonborn, the physical embodiment of Destiny's cosmic nexus, can withstand it, as well as anyone who is traveling with him at the time apparently. Then increase your vocabulary via an arcane, orange jello jiggler infused version of Hooked on Phonics. As events unfold, the player is confronted with such lingering questions as who, if not ancient aliens or George Soros, is reviving the long-dead dragons from their burial mounds. This uppity cum-sleeve suspects the Thalmor, and I don't blame her. These piss-yellow elves with their high foreheads, perfect for teabagging, nibbleable ears you could whisper any secret into, and habit of constantly bringing up the Holocaust, makes me want to puke all over my own buttock, cheeks, balls, penis, nipples, taint, colostomy bag, and wheelchair. Perhaps this is due to just how rudely every goddamn Thalmor you encounter behaves, or mayhaps Their abhorrent qualities are due to their oddly specific parallels to a certain other group of inhuman humanoids. Stop me if this sounds familiar, but a powerful empire has been infiltrated by a small group of religious zealots who believe they alone are chosen to rule, leverage their stranglehold on the media and delicatessens to destroy the local religion, utilize the lower animal races to destabilize once peaceful cities, and collect the foreskins of infants to use as wee little carrying cases for their bagels when they're not too busy murdering the son of our Lord and Savior, Jesus H. Christ. Fucking Mexicans! However, Delphine is a woman and therefore wrong by default. The mission she sends you on, which is the second worst mission I've experienced since that Nocturnal E mission I had as a child that permanently ruined my otherwise pristine Saint Vivic blanket by infecting it with belly magic tainted by gonorrhea and also some literal taint, turns out to be a wild goose chase, but instead of chasing a goose, as I often do when one wanders into the alleyway behind a Fuddruckers with its supple beak and long, slender neck, perfect for deep-throating a gonorrheic dick, you spring an asshole from his cell, then leave him for dead 10 seconds later as a frost troll rips his ass open wider than Jennifer Hepler strapped into the world's strongest centrifuge. Perhaps players may also ponder where all the fucking animations have gone. These star-crossed characters, the last two surviving members of the once Grand Order of Blades, have waited decades to reunite after a tragic separation. Instead of a lingering hug, firm handshake, or playful rim job, these sufferers of adult-onset Asperger's greet by standing toe-to-toe with their arms at their sides because the animators were too busy designing pneumatic lifts for Todd Howard's baby shoes to craft more authentic animations. Hell, if you want to so much as hug your own wife in Skyrim, you'll need to draw the curtains, open a private browsing tab, and download at least 3 mods. And perhaps most troubling of all, erudite players may wonder, is it gay to fuck a man in the belly button? I mean, so long as you're imagining a girl with a fat hairy ass at the time, there's nothing wrong with it, right? I'm asking for a friend, by the way, as my belly button is an empowered 9-inch long Audi, and I'll be damned to hell if I slip it inside a man's hairy, gritty, succulent asshole ever again. Well, after briefly glancing at some conveniently placed low-resolution furry porn, you get dispatched by Super Mario to retrieve a wall scroll from the black light section of a Hot Topic, which will show you exactly what you need to see in order to progress the main campaign, despite having absolutely no justifiable reason to do so. I get that the Elder Scroll is connected to the backstory of the dragon conflict, but was Alduin setting up a webcam for some hot, dry, scaly sex chat, using the Elder Scroll as a low-tech tablet computer just before the heroes arrived? And don't tell me it was the will of the scrolls, because it might as well have told the last group of retards who used it that their plan wasn't going to work if that was the case. Shit, it could have at least clarified the whole sex with another man's belly button issue. Lazy fucking scroll needs to get a job, go back to school, and stop hanging around the house all goddamn day talking about it's applying for a job when we all know it's just looking at fat Japanese women's asses on the internet. Shit, if that was a job, I'd be owed millions of dollars in back due pay. Them dirty bitches can paint a yellow line on the road with their taints by scooting around like a mangy old dog with worms. And I loves it. It's delicious. Their pussies ain't sideways, they're just Tokyo drifting. Well, immediately after this thrilling flashback, you kill Alduin, the World Eater, the ender of ages in the original model for Dragon Dildos, by mumbling at him like a passive-aggressive Mexican with a mouthful of sticky beans, then holding up a dusty post-it note. Unfortunately, the developers realized at the last second that the main quest wasn't quite long enough, so Alduin immediately gets better, and the Dragonborn is forced to end a civil war by sitting around with his thumb up his ass, while idiots discuss their feelings like a bunch of old ladies whose periods haven't quite run out. And to be perfectly honest, I'd rather talk to my grandmother in vivid detail about the flavor and viscosity of her queef than replay this section where Once again, Esbern's impassioned speech is ruined by lazy animators as he stands there awkwardly when he should be gesticulating like a deaf Italian with Parkinson's attempting to teach his daughter how to jerk him off. For the 45 minutes this ceasefire lasts before you complete the main campaign, the player must catch a dragon by dropping a log on it, like I do to women when I catch a whiff of my own rag after swallowing too many pescattios. Then fly it to Valhalla, which is basically just Skyrim with added fog. You then kill Alduin again, for really reals this time, but basically accomplish nothing, since dragons still spawn all over the fucking place, and thanks to Skyrim's accomplishment system being as busted as my nut when a fat bitch quits through her corduroy pants, producing that nostalgic horking sound that momentarily returns me to my childhood, most NPCs won't even realize you've completed the main quest, which is an issue that becomes especially apparent in the following guild campaigns. No matter how many boring lectures about magic played out while I took fat ogre shits in the other room, how many ominous disco balls of doom I poked with a stick in order to prevent an elf with poor character development from doing something vaguely threatening with it, or how many blue raspberry draugrs I sprinted past because, frankly, I was tired of their shit at the time. No one at the Mage Guild seemed to acknowledge my station. I could walk right up to a rankless initiate while poking my dick through the fanny pack slot of my archmage robes, like some sort of mage's staff that was only capable of inflicting negative status effects and occasionally shooting confused ants covered in bacon grease all over the place. Don't ask why, and they'd still shit-talk me as if it was my first day there. Was it because I walked around carrying my spells at arm's length in front of me, like Frankenstein holding some Pokeballs, or like I do with my own Pokeball balls on a sultry summer's day to prevent them from dragging on the ground and attracting ants? Mayhaps it was retribution for all those times I made inappropriate Mike Pence jokes whilst electrocuting homosexuals? I mean, he's right about shocking the gay away. If you walk in on your teenage son tonguing Tyrone's turgid tube steak like he was snake bitten and the balls contained anti-venom, tossing a toaster at that tosser of salads during his next brown water bubble bath would prevent him from ever gobbling goo again. Perhaps I dread this disavowal by my peers resulted from the other mages sensing that I was a fraud. After all, the only spells I was ever required to cast before becoming the Archmage were Healing Hand and Mage Light. And shit, those spells are nothing special. You could achieve the same effects of those spells by spending $10 on a hand job and a pack of matches. Unless, of course, you already own a lighter. Then I'll only charge you $5, but you're gonna have to spit on my hand for me, as I generally budget the proceeds from matches towards my bacon grease fund, and would hate to run out on a hot summer's day, lest my testes drag like a syphilitic shadow behind me, unlubed by the sweetest swine-based ambrosia beheld on this beautiful oif, since I discovered certain breeds of fat horse cultivate cheese between their folds, in addition to their usual crop of low self-esteem and fatherless mulatto children. On your journey to become a powerless archmage who has absolutely zero authority to affect policy, send other mages on missions, or force everyone else to walk around backwards, pantsless, with their dicks tucked between their legs so it looks like a bunch of oversized mosquitoes flying through the halls, you'll complete such amazing quests as returning an overdue library book, staring at a dangly ball in a secret basement like an incredibly confused woman, wondering how she could have passed out behind a Fuddruckers and awoke covered in dried cum and dead ants, and also witnessing how the previous archmage left all of his friends for fates worse than death out of cowardice, yet doing nothing to punish him because the writers prioritized hastily writing that previous archmage out of the game in a manner as vague and unsatisfying as the rest of the bullshit associated with this mess of a questline. Next, I approached Skyrim's bastardization of the Fighters Guild, the Companions, which is fittingly an anagram for the phrase, I pause, man come. But we'll get to that in a minute. I joined and eventually led this group of unlikable shitheads long after defeating Alduin, the literal devourer of time and realities, yet everyone treated me like some limp dick nobody. I was sent on such tantalizing trials as giving this nunny who licks the cunny the gentlest fisting she's received, since Sister Freda, the matron with a heart of gold and fingers like plump overcooked sausages, failed to hold on to a staircase banister with her bacon grease and womb scrapings covered hand, and tragically tumbled to her demise. Escorting mascara and dog-cum aficionado Farkass through generic bandit cave number 5832, and reassembling Wuthrad, the world-cleaving axe of legend that is somehow weaker than the basic shit you can loot from Draugr mobs. While some may believe the Companions Guild to be the most remarkable due to their members' ability to pause your neghole with the gift of dog aids, granting the player temporary super strength in exchange for an innate weakness to peanut butter, tennis balls, and Korean barbecue sauce, I am exponentially more impressed at the unique animation that plays during the furrification ceremony. Taking into consideration Bethesda's disdain for animating their characters in general, I can only assume the developers accidentally motion captured a gameplay tester slitting their wrists after sitting through the Civil War treaty segment for the third time and retroactively incorporated the animation into the game as a cost-saving maneuver. Notable events that occurred during this questline include having no one show up to your graduation party because they all know that you're a degenerate yiffer, putting the fun in funeral after the entire guild of fighters failed to hold off a couple of glittery Twilight vampires, and setting an old man's soul to rest in a glorified beer hall in the middle of a hazy soccer field because he's too goddamn lazy to kill a couple of Brianna Wu clones and the physical manifestation of his own inner demons himself. After rolling around in enough bacon grease and furious ants to get the dank butthole stank of my now discarded fursuit off me, I cautiously approached the Thieves Guild next, wherein the complete lack of alternate solutions to quests began to annoy me almost as much as that thing growing on my inner thigh, which is either semi-sentient and whispers terrible things to me at night, or is so infected that it's causing me to hallucinate.
Shut up, Vessel. Those mortals need not know of more.
As a member of the prestigious Thieves Guild, you will embark on such important intrigues as beating up villagers for their pocket change, with no nice guy option to pay off their debts for them, or allow them to suck the dead ants out of your dick as payment instead. Eventually, an actual plot thread emerges from this death march through liquid shit, wherein a blueberry ape with ET fingers and a bulbous progeria head initiates you into a second, even more top-secret Thieves Guild, which is conveniently located on the other side of a puddle within the confines of a highly populated town, and could easily be found by any kid looking for his frisbee. There, you will exchange your eternal soul for some worthless Batman footy pajamas in order to track down a guy who betrayed you to a near certain death so he could more easily jimmy a rhinestone off of a statue. Your reward for tolerating this Puerto Rican economy simulator is the Skeleton Key, aka the only good guild item in the entire fucking game, which you will immediately throw away for a glimpse of some barely adequate side boob. I mean, I was able to get half a rod after flopping it around like an AIDS-infested weasel of love a couple of times, but it wasn't worth sustaining all those ant bites on my hand. Overall, the Thieves Guild are some grimy-ass motherfuckers, and the complete lack of an option to destroy it was a letdown. Luckily, if the Dark Brotherhood's convoluted recruitment process bothers you as much, you can wipe them out without having to worry about the mass media reporting on it, much like the genocide of white farmers occurring in South Africa right now. Thanks, Obama! First, you have to randomly overhear a bartender or guard blathering about some kid on the other side of the continent wanting to murder a schoolmarm who shoved a ruler up his bunghole sideways. murder Granny Fudgefingers in front of a crowd of cheering brats who will no longer have to sleep on their stomachs, receive the most ominous black hand since Magic Johnson sustained a paper cut, take a nap, and murder some random shitheads for the amusement of a slut named Astrid, whose name makes no sense until she reveals to the player how her uncle used to give her the old poop dick behind the tool shed, and you suddenly realize that her codename Astrid is short for her uncle's favorite brand of personal lubricant, Astroglide. If you don't research the process online, you'll probably never figure it out, and I've honestly had less trouble initiating sex while rollerblading uphill. Believe you me, if you think ether makes a woman noodle-legged when stationary, try snaking it up a wobbly bitch to the beat of thunder in your heart as her bike shorts bunch up in your knee pads. Once you pass through the painfully obvious Skeletor door that literally anyone could find, you will meet such colorful characters as Babette, the pedo-bait half-vampire, Lizardman, who is half-man, half-Clinton, and Nas, who I am told is half-man, half-amazing. His poetry's deep, he never fell. This menagerie of murderous mongoloids dispatches the Dragonborn on such vital missions as stabbing a homeless retard while he sleeps in a pile of his own excrement, then some other putts because he gave an especially vindictive bitch the old pump and dump, imbuing her with the worst venereal disease of all, unrequited love. See, I bet most of you were expecting me to say something flippant, like pregnancy, or outright disgusting like syphilis. But honestly, syphilis isn't so bad once you get used to the taste. After killing more defenseless Nordic peoples than Sweden's immigration policy, you are granted the greatest honor of all, a chance to spoon with a girl whose pussy dried up so hard after finding out that the Dragonborn doesn't actually have a job or income, it turned her entire body into queef jerky. This livelier looking version of Hillary Clinton dispatches you to murder the Emperor for the profits of some beady-eyed manipulative Jew who you will later also murder if you have any sense of justice. To this end, you will either sit through dull scripted events in order to kill your way towards your ultimate goal, or just cast frenzy on everyone like I did instead. Ha! Made you kill your wife on your wedding day! According to Alanis Morissette, this rain of blood is especially ironic. Ha! Made you punch me right after you swore not to fight back. Ha! You betrayed the best companion in the game and got the Anakin Skywalker treatment for your troubles, so I killed you with a healing spell, you charcoal briquette looking bitch. Tee-hee! And what is your reward for inflicting so much suffering upon the world? Well, you get to ride a black stallion harder than a fat bitch who hates her dad. While some non-guild quests remain to be discussed, we don't have all fucking day, so let's just skip to the downloadable content. Save for Hearthfire, that soulless cash grab adds nothing to the game, save for building a couple of houses and the ability to murder someone and adopt their children like a creepy pedophile. And honestly, if I wanted to play house with other people's children, I wouldn't have flooded my secret basement after those pesky police started poking around. In Dawnguard, the Dragonborn becomes so aroused that the moment he puts his prick in hand, a slut named Serena, which is short for Sir Anal Please, manifests from a discarded refrigerator box to suck him dry. Luckily for this scab-breast nibbler of band-aids, she could skip my neck and go directly to milking my pecker, since following a horrific crocheting accident back in 2003, my spurts of hurt have blood in them too. With a thought who saves you money on dinner dates 1 week out of every month because she can stand on her head and slurp up her own period blood for sustenance in tow, the player will gain entry to a castle full of ass-eating shit-talkers who will present the player with the Sophie's choice of either looking like some half-assed Second Life avatar or keeping their melanin intact and genociding a bunch of try-hard goths instead. The terrible vampire designs irked me at first, until I realized that, in addition to vampirism, Serena's dad, Harkon, likely also suffered from adult-onset Down syndrome. Study those triangular neck muscles, sculpted from years of strangling cats and fondling Sonic the Hedgehog plushie dolls, and consider the following points of interest. both vampires and downers possess superhuman strength, are kept indoors during the day to avoid scaring the neighborhood children, are impossible to resist sexually, and like blood, pennies taste metallic. If, like me, you aren't openly an edgy creep, you'll keep your ability to eat onions intact and join a group of worthless idiots who hate Twilight almost as much as I do. How worthless is the Dawnguard? Well, 90% of them die off screen, and the player is forced to recruit a gay guy with a fetish for bears, and a slut whose delicates were pinched by crabs to replace them. Once assembled, this ragtag group will do absolutely fuck all, leaving it to the player and his new Hot Topic clerk of a girlfriend to prevent the vampires from blocking out the sun, like Mr. Burns in that one episode of The Simpsons, or me sticking my dick out of a helicopter window halfway. To this end, the player must run around like a fucking idiot, looking for someone special to read an Elder Scroll to him, even though they already successfully read one in the main campaign, killing vampires like Blade, but without the income tax evasion and sickle cell anemia, reassemble a sundial in a public space, using pieces within arm's length in order to unlock the secret entrance to the resting place of an Elder Scroll that no one accidentally stumbled upon over the course of hundreds of years, because I was completely right about those vampires being retarded. Then trekking across a less interesting version of the New Londo ruins while fighting Soul Draugr and Soul Skeletons in order to better explore Serena's mommy issues. Experience the thrill of gathering bark without the complications of your hideous man bun getting caught on the crossbeams of your cuck shed between runs. Confronting an albino elf who set the events of the DLC into motion because he's too goddamn stupid to look up how to cure vampirism on Google. And finally, killing Serana's dad, with only an eternity of reconstituted tampon belches in your face first thing in the morning to look forward to as your reward. In the Dragonborn DLC, players find that books really are portals to other realities. In this case, those realities include a library composed entirely of asparagus piss and a Morrowind-themed island constructed from assets reappropriated from the Skyrim mod after Bethesda secretly DMCA'd the developers. On this 2-city block long island that you can literally cross by pressing the auto-walk button, then leaving the room to jam your dick down an anthill, the player will embark on such epic quests as handing out wine coolers, killing some ashy fucks instead of just spraying them with cocoa butter, reigniting an elaborate array of steam engines because you and one of the most powerful mages in the world are too fucking stupid to smash through a flimsy piece of glass, and killing mind flayers in Imagination Land where papers swirl about like shit rags in a turlet, once and for all proving the saying correct that once you go black book, you never go back book. Here on Soul Steam, the long-thought-dead Dragonborn Mirak has utilized the innate mind-warping powers of dragon dildos to force idiots to build a temple for him, because even performing Eldritchian incantations from the Netherrealms is less of a hassle than negotiating payment and schedules with unionized labor. Enemies in this expansion include giants from the main game after getting blacked, Jeb Bush's wife and in-laws, flying netches so poorly animated that the developers hid them on the corners of the map, and oh boy, more Draugr! We're not even in Skyrim anymore, and there's still fucking Draugr all over the fucking place. What's the matter, Bethesda? Todd Howard didn't want to strap on the motion capture gear so you could properly animate some creepers? Didn't want to pull out the old Cliff Racer models because their wings reminded you too much of Zoe Quinn's pussy lips? You couldn't just borrow some titty monster mod girl and spray paint gold for a quick and easy golden saint? You lazy fuckers! Rounding out this half-assed, well, a half of an ass is the cheek, and this is more like the asshole, and a hole in itself is nothing. So let's call this a vaporous ass DLC, is an epic quest to learn 3 shouts from a spaghetti monster that enable the player to force a dragon to suck his dick. Fortunately, the only one you're forced to use it on is rendered effectively toothless by the Nintendo 64 quality textures on its mouth, and knows how to work this shaft and swallow the gravy, baby. You then pilot a dragon that flies almost as poorly as I do in a wind tunnel once my foreskin unfurls and catches the updraft, to a final showdown against Murak. And I almost pity this stupid fuck. He just wanted to go home and rape everyone shitless while they were too busy swinging a hammer to protect their booty hole, and I can understand that. Well, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, you can subscribe, tweet about it, check out one of my ebooks, paperbacks, or audiobooks using the links provided below, toss a nickel at me on Patreon so you can vote on which games I make my next video about, catch my live stream here on YouTube each Friday night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, or describe your wildest sexual fantasy in the comment section below in the form of a limerick. Until we meet again, my juicy little morsels of magnanimous magnificence, remember, there once was a man from YouTube who used bacon grease as a lube. He lowered his pants, got bit by some ants, and crawled to a Fuddruckers nude.